Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Tim Thompson, the color commentator for Vanderbilt men's basketball. This show is sponsored by the Well Coffee House, which is a Nashville area coffee house that provides fresh roasted coffee along with its house-made pastries, breakfast and lunch offerings. There are 4 locations to serve you in the Nashville area: Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown, and Bellevue. You can get more information at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We thank our co-presenting sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Today's news is presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in any type of accident, call Taylor or Russell at 615-846-6200 to see what your rights are and if they can help. Vanderbilt takes on Florida this Saturday in men's basketball. The game tips off at Memorial Gym at 7:30 Central. The guest line, presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I love Boll & Branch's sheets and use them myself every night. They are fair trade certified, meaning they are made under safe conditions by men and women, treated and paid fairly. Try them free for a month. You can return them, but you won't want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress, which was voted the best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code VANDY and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Tim Thompson joins us. Tim is the color commentator for Vanderbilt men's basketball. Tim was in Lexington to see Vanderbilt lose to Kentucky on Wednesday night. Tim, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Doing well, yeah. I don't think anyone expected kind of what we saw last night. I thought the guys really gave a great effort. But again, you're playing in Rupp Arena against an extremely talented team, and it's like I've always said, we don't have any margin for error. You make 2 or 3 mistakes against a team, like Kentucky, and like the team that we have. All of a sudden, two mistakes turns into 8 points, and then you lose your lead, and crowd gets into it and that kind of thing. So it was. But I tell you, they kept fighting just all the way till the end, for sure.
Well, the thing you and I talked about off podcast before this was that's the first time I think either of us have thought since they lost Neesmith that they showed some potential to maybe get a win before this season's done.
Well, yeah, I mean, you sit there and you think, just from a conference standpoint, you lose a guy like Neesmith. And if you look at the stats, Neesmith has 1 game on there. And of course his scoring average is 18 and that kind of thing. And so when I do stats and all that kind of stuff, I don't even look at the overall yearly stats anymore with this team, because we're not that team, because we don't have Neesmith and we don't have Cleavon. The team that we are is the team that the conference game stats say we are. And, you look at, say we're about a 50-point team. The thing that's scary right now is just how poorly we're shooting the basketball from outside. You look at 22% from the 3-point line and 35% from field goal. And, that's not going to win you any games. But I will say that I thought Dylan Disu put on a performance last night that they're going to look at that kid and say, that kid's really going to be good for Vanderbilt by the time he's, mid sophomore, junior year. He had 13 points, 11 rebounds, and he had 5 blocks, which a couple of those blocks were like elite kind of blocks. So again, I think you have to be encouraged by what you saw last night. But again, we didn't win, and I don't think Coach Stackhouse or anybody on the staff wants any kind of moral victories. But again, it was a really good showing in Rupp Arena.
You and I talked about Disu before the podcast. You said that for part of the game, he was the best player on the floor. It sure looked that way, at least during the stretch he was out there. That block that turned into the dunk or the layup on the other end, where he goes up and basically catches the layup and slings it to
Yeah.
Saban for points on the other end, that was one of those plays that makes you sit up and take some notice.
Yeah, I mean, and I said something to Joe on the radio last night while we were doing the game. There was a stretch where, Dylan knocked down, a 3-pointer. I think he had a spin move to the basket. He, had 3 rebounds in a row, and then he makes a block shot by Saban. And there was that 3.5 minute stretch where I just felt like he was the best player on the floor. And that's saying a lot when you're playing Kentucky in Rupp Arena with all those 5-star kids that they have on the floor. But he's a great kid. He's 6'9", probably has a 7-foot wingspan. He intercepted a cross-court pass last night that, I mean, just kind of out of the blue, all of a sudden, his big long arm just went up and just bang, grabbed it, and it was going the other way. So I think what I saw with him putting the basketball on the floor last night was encouraging because the scouting report on him is, hey, the guy can really shoot the basketball from the perimeter, make him put the ball on the deck, and make him drive, make him do spin moves, that kind of thing. And he's starting to prove to people that, that scouting report will get you in trouble because now he's able to put the basketball on the floor.
I thought from television, a foul or two that he picked up were nitpicky. Do I think that was the difference in them winning or losing the game? No, but I think when he was out late, that's when Kentucky made the run basically to win the game. And that's the other thing is I understand what Jerry Stackhouse was trying to do, but I thought maybe he should have brought him back a little sooner. What were your thoughts on those two issues?
Well, personally, and I told you this, personally, that 4th foul that Dylan got, Scottie Pippen, because I thought when they threw the ball into Richards, I thought Pippen had him like wrapped up a little bit. And all of a sudden the whistle blows, and I even said, that's a foul on Scottie Pippen. Well, next thing you know, they give it to Dylan, and I think the coaching staff was shocked too because they made him go to the monitor and ask him for sure, is that who you called it on? And they went to the monitor and looked, and they said, yeah, it's a foul on Dylan. Now I was on the baseline, and I don't know whether he grabbed Richard's arm or what he did, but one of the officials saw it that way. I mean, personally, what I saw was Scottie Pippen trying to wrap him up, and they ended up, calling the foul on Dylan for his 4th foul, so they had to sit him. So, but I mean, also, Chris, you look, we're not deep on the bench at all. I mean, you look at Jordan Wright didn't play till 8 minutes left in the game. That he didn't even get in the game, so they didn't utilize him as a bench player. So when you take him out of the mix, the rotation, now all of a sudden, you've got a really, really short bench to try to play 40 minutes against a really, really tough Kentucky team.
Let's talk about the streak a minute. Did you ever think you would see the day where Vanderbilt lost this many games in a row in the league?
No, because, I always felt like, Vanderbilt's always shooters. I mean, they've always had 2, 3, 4 guys that could really make perimeter shots. And in today's game, you've got to have those kids. Or you have to have such an inside presence. I mean, you look at Kentucky, I mean, they've got a couple kids that can shoot the ball quickly, is a pretty good outside shooter. Presence that really keeps you honest. And, that's one of the things that Vanderbilt struggles with is, they don't really have an inside presence down low at the block where they can go to try to get baskets. And then, their perimeter shooting, you look at the stats, 20%, 22%. That tells you that, we don't have guys that are really knockdown shooters. Now, can we make some outside shots? Yeah, like we did last entire game. We don't have knockdown shooters that you automatically think are going to jump up and knock shots down. And I think that's where we've got to get. But because of all the perimeter shooters that we've had over the years, we've always been able to win games based on the fact that we've been able to make 3-pointers, whether it's 12 3-pointers or 17 3-pointers in a situation where we can offset maybe our lack of interior game, but we don't have that this year. And we didn't really have it. We really didn't have it last year. Once Garland got hurt, we had Aaron, but halfway through the season last year, they were double teaming him, taking him out of the game. Wasn't scoring the basketball, that kind of thing. But, now, Aaron Smith goes out and Scotty's jumped up and made a couple, but for the most part, we don't have knockdown perimeter shooters.
You are pretty well connected with a lot of alums in the Vanderbilt basketball community. What's the thought right now on the direction of the program?
Really, it's kind of a wait and see. You've got, coach that is a first-year coach. He's never coached in college. And, I think that, he showed last night that, I thought he did some good things, from a play calling standpoint, that kind of thing. But I think everyone, if you know basketball, if you've been around basketball, I've always said you got to have dudes and recruit guys that can play at this level. Because, I think Jerry's done a really good job from an X and O standpoint of putting guys in the position to get shots and that kind of thing. We've had guys that just haven't executed on that. They've been put in a position, but they just don't execute. So I think what the Vanderbilt alumni basketball players are looking at is, hey, we got an inside presence and that kind of thing. And then some of those things take care of themselves. Because when you can shoot the basketball from the perimeter, like most every Vanderbilt team has done for 50 years, you can make up for some mistakes and for some lack of athletic ability and those kind of things. So I think that's where the people that have played basketball at Vanderbilt, the recruiting process of who we're going to bring in and how we're going to modify the offense around guys that can really shoot the basketball and that kind of thing.
Let's go into the mailbag, which is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan Josh Minton, an independent insurance agent operating out of Brentwood. If you are looking for a one-stop shop to take care of your insurance needs, Josh has you covered. Please give him a call today at 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Twitter at joshuamintonhq or at facebook.com/jdmintonhq. He is my insurance agent. Give Josh a try. Tell him you heard about it on the Vandy Sports Podcast. Mr. Vandy says, how good do you think Dylan Disu can become during his career at Vanderbilt?
Oh, gosh. I was talking about that with a buddy of mine this morning. And, personally, I think if he develops, and again, we talked about this, being able to put the basketball on the floor, I think he could be a pro. I really do. I think he can shoot it from deep. His length is crazy scary. We saw that last night in a couple of the blocks that he had. And, he's one of those guys that with his length, he tips balls in passing lanes that normal guys just can't get their hands on because of how long his arms are and that kind of thing. But I may be overstating it right now, but I think the kid is, he's a hard enough worker. He's got a pro body. If he puts on some weight and some muscle, I think he's got a chance that he potentially could play. He could play in the league.
We're trying to find some positives because it's been a miserable year and those topics have been discussed. But I do look at what Jerry has done with this roster. You see Dylan Disu coming on. You saw Aaron Nesmith had really improved since last year. You see Saban Lee, I think, has gotten better and has found a role to really become a good player in the league. Now, Saban's a kid that's going to need talent around him or else he's not going to be the lead dog. But in terms of what he can be for them, I think that you've seen Saban, when he's had guys around him, has been very good. I think Scottie Pippen's a good offensive player. I do find encouragement in the player development end of things because I think Jerry Stackhouse has done a pretty good job with that so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you're in a situation where I think they've developed over the years. And, the one thing I've always said, especially with freshmen, with Dylan and Scotty, you know, we don't have to worry about it really with Saban because he's a junior and he's been through the, grind and all that kind of stuff. Usually these freshmen kind of hit a wall, about this time through the SEC season because, back a year ago, they were playing high school and they weren't playing as many games and the practices weren't as intense and the games weren't as physical and all that kind of stuff. And they tend to kind of mentally and physically just kind of hit that wall. And, like the way Dylan played last night and even Scotty, the way he played last night, I haven't really seen that yet. Now, again, it might happen in 2 games. I don't know, but that's encouraging that both of them are continuing to play at a pretty high level. The one thing you worry about is you worry about a guy like Saban, who just plays a lot of minutes, and when he plays, the dude he goes 110%. I just call him a warrior. That's what I call him. That's the way he plays. He's so competitive and he wants to win so badly. And, when does his tank start to get a little empty as well? Because, you almost can't afford to not have him in the game. And so you got to be, I think, strategic a little bit about resting guys and that kind of thing. But I think Jerry's done a good job of, getting those kids improvement and that kind of thing. We saw it last night.
Door King says, if Vanderbilt has Cleavon Brown, does it win at Kentucky?
No. I mean, I don't think so. Cleavon would have helped, but I don't think Cleavon, probably would have made that much of a difference. Nick Richards, I think, is probably maybe the best post player in the SEC. And we'd had another 5 fouls on him. Now, again, the one thing that hurt us last night was when Eduque was on him and they were setting those, they ran the plays and all of a sudden, boom, here comes the rear screen from the low block to the free throw line where Nick Richards was, and all of a sudden he spins, Edge gets rear screened, and nobody puts a body on Nick Richards. If somebody just bumps him, like the guy on the weak side right there, when he makes that spin and can get in the lane and just bump him off balance a little bit, then he doesn't probably dunk the basketball those 2 or 3 times that he did, down the stretch. But last night, I'm not sure if Cleavon would have made enough of a difference for us to win the game.
Any sense on when he's coming back? I know that you had said a couple of weeks ago that you felt like, based on the injury and the timeline, it was about mid-February. Have you heard any more?
No, I think it's kind of hit and miss a little bit. Just, how he's responding to treatment and that kind of thing. And different kids respond to treatment differently. And, I think his is probably a little bit slower than, some other people. But, the one thing that I said maybe last time on the podcast is, okay, let's just say, for instance, it's, we're looking at, February 1st. Let's just say we're looking at February 1st right now. If he comes back on February 15th, all right, or 10th, conditioning wise, where is he and how quickly can he get into what I would say game shape, playing shape? Because, he's been sitting for how many weeks now? 6-8 weeks almost. That's going to be the tough part, is getting back into playing shape. And, I'm sure he's been doing some stuff where he's not been, running and all that kind of thing. But that's a whole different ballgame when you come back to play and you've been out that long and you're not in playing shape. So again, I don't know when he's going to return and how effective he's going to be in his return just based on conditioning.
Let's see, this one from Raiders 1967. Vanderbilt is shooting 67% from the free throw line. Opponents are shooting 72%. Any thoughts on the continued free throw shooting issues?
No, there's no thoughts. We just, we got to get better. We have not been a very good free throw shooting team the last 2 years. I mean, think about it, Chris. You've been at these games. I mean, last year against Tennessee, we hit our free throws. The hook and hold thing on Grant Williams is a non-factor. We win the game. South Carolina, we missed 12 free throws, I think, last year. You know, against South Carolina, a week ago, on Saturday, we missed 14 free throws. I mean, I'm not sure if that would have made that much difference, but if you're going to be competitive and you're going to get to the free throw line, you got to make your free throws. You got to shoot at least 70% or above as a team if you're going to win games, especially on the road. But again, that's confidence. And I think that's where right now where we're lacking, not only at the free throw line, but from the perimeter, is we're lacking some confidence when we jump up to shoot the basketball. And there's not a lot coaches can do about that. Kids got to be mentally tough and, step to the free throw line and make free throws when the game's on the line and it's critical. And I'm not sitting there saying that, they're not practicing, because I know they are. And you got to get over that mental block. And you got to step up to the line and make free throws.
Papa Hick 4 VU asks, in your opinion, has Jordan Wright hit a wall? His confidence just seems to have taken a dive recently.
Well, after the game last night, Joe and I were talking about it on the air, because Jordan didn't start. And throughout the whole first half, he didn't play at all. And so I think he came in at the 8-minute mark, and they got into the offense, and he had the basketball, and he had his foot on the sidelines, and it turned it over. And they took him out again and didn't play him. And so Joe actually asked Coach Stackhouse, what was the reason for Jordan not playing, because he's been getting quite a few minutes. And Coach Stackhouse said, he's got to grow up. He's got to stop making mistakes. He's at a point in his first year here that he can't continue to make the mistakes that he's making, and for us to be effective and win basketball games. And Jerry said, there's only one way that I can remedy that, and that's set his tail on the bench, let him think about it. And when he starts not making as many mistakes and doing the things that the coaching staff asked him, he's going to get more minutes. That's what he said. So I'm not sure if it's hit a wall. I just think, again, that with Jordan, it's a confidence. If you look at his conference 3-point shooting, he's 0 for 18. He hadn't made an outside shot. And again, that's anytime you're in those kind of slumps, you jump up and shoot that basketball and you don't think it's going in. And I think that's kind of where Jordan is right now from a confidence standpoint. I think he needs to understand, okay, if I'm not shooting the basketball well, I got to defend, I got to rebound, I got to set good screens, I got to, help my teammates be better. And if he does that, he's going to get more minutes.
Last one here, Tim. This from Vandy Fan 96. Tim, based on the season so far, recruiting, coaching, and what you've seen, do you believe Coach Jerry Stackhouse will get Vandy back to consistent winning and competing for SEC and national relevance?
Well, I mean, it all comes down to recruiting. I think he can coach him when he gets him here. I just think, this is their first year. They got a late start on some recruiting, last year. So again, I think another year, 2 years to see where they are, who they bring in from a talent standpoint, is where you're going to have to be evaluated on. It is what it is. And I think Jerry understands that. I think Malcolm understands that. Because right now, if you look at our talent level, it's probably not where Coach Stackhouse wants it to be when you have to compete against Auburn and get better. The current have to get better, and we've got to recruit. We got to recruit better.
Well, and to that, because I get asked on this all the time, I think here's the way it stands. You got David Grace, who's a very good recruiter and works very hard for them, but I don't think David's connections are really in the South. And then you got his other two assistants. One came from the NBA and the other one came from the high school ranks. And so those are guys that are out there that don't have recruiting connections and things like that and really aren't on the road that much. Um, it's just, I think when people talk about it, that's the thing that they're addressing, is it not?
Yeah, that very well may be, and again, personally, I think, you got to have multiple guys on the road, recruiting in this league to get players. And again, I think that's something that, Coach Stackhouse is going to have to probably address, and, have more bodies out there on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I think this offseason will tell us a lot because Jerry, one thing about him, he's not hurting for intelligence, and so I'm really anxious to see how he reshuffles the deck and what next year might look like.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, I mean, we've all been, first year in jobs. All of us have been there. And, there's a lot of things that I think he's probably learning on the fly, and he's learning as game after game after game, and, figuring out, this is not working. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like you say, he's a smart guy. And, I think probably at the end of the season, he's going to, kind of pull back and evaluate, how he wants to do things, and, how it's going to be. And then there probably could be some changes.
He is Tim Thompson, the color commentator for Vanderbilt basketball. I'm Chris Lee, the host of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Tim, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you again next week.
All right. We'll see you. Bye.